Okay, so thank you for joining this meeting today. The topic that we will cover today is how to build a customer data-driven strategy in your organization, and it is presented by MDW Partners Company. So the agenda will be the following. So we'll introduce the topic in order to understand how it is important. Then we will explain the context, the challenge that your organization will face in order to design such a strategy. And then before explaining you how to build your strategy, uh, so your customer data driven strategy, I think it's important to mention and for you to understand what are the proposed solution on the market to acquire this knowledge before discussing about first how to build your strategy and then of course the potential next step for you and what is actionable. So first, let me introduce the topic by presenting initially, if you let me just two slides to introduce our company. So our company, MDW Partners, is specialized in three main areas. So first one is data-driven application. We specialize in multiple topics such as what we call business intelligence, which allows to design some and build some dashboard reporting analytics. We also talk with the business in order to analyze their needs. Finally, we also specialize in customer insight, which is the topic that we will mention today. We also have an offer covering the business process automation across the organization and also low-code solutions. So really, let's say biz apps. And finally, last but not least, we specialize in the adoption and the training of all those topics. The second topic is artificial intelligence, which allows us to provide, build, and deploy end-to-end artificial intelligence and operationalizable solution, covering topics such as what we call machine learning, deep learning, uh, analyzing both unstructured information and structured information. And finally, last but not least, big data. So we have this pillar which allows us to help companies to store a huge amount of data in what we call modern cloud data warehouse. We specialize also in data streaming in order to capture and collect data in real time. And we help organizations to design data governance, master data management, and finally, optimization of those cloud data platform cost. Some fact sheet about us. So we are Microsoft Swiss actual partner of the year in analytics and AI. So we have a strong specialization and a strong partnership with Microsoft. 89% of the projects that we deliver use customer data. So I think it's important regarding the topic that we will cover today. And we have customer segmentation, the following customer segmentation. So we work with customer in the fields of financial services, uh, international organization, consumer goods, public and education, energy, and finally, retail and industry. So we cover this topic in different segments and in different industry. Um, Finally, in terms of, let's say, when we talk about customer data, the first thing is to understand if we are discussing with companies which are in the field of B2C, so business to consumer, B2B, so business to business services, and finally, what I call B2B2C, so company who produce some product and some offering for an end customer, but who deal with resellers, so with other corporate company in order for them to resell to the customer. And finally, most of our customers are in this segment of what we call B2B2C. We have three offices, so our headquarters in Geneva, we is in Geneva, sorry. We have also a subsidiary in Madrid and another one in Paris. So about the webinar that we will have today, let me explain you the what, why, how, and who. So the objective is really to understand the strategy to put in place to have a customer data organization and to understand the methodology to follow to achieve an optimal end-to-end solution. But it won't be, let's say, really solution oriented in the sense that we won't really drill through a specific demonstration of a specific solution. This is not a technical demo, you know. This is more really to understand all the topic that and all the prerequisites that have to be put in place in order to deal with such a project. And why we do this webinar? So really to have some example to evangelize what is the customer data value topic, to have an overview of the main goals, the challenge, and the solution and of course the outcome to be achieved, and understand for your organization what is actionable. Considering that it is not a webinar which is industry specific, so this is not really, I would say, a presentation that you can reuse for your specific industry, because I think that today we have many different participants, some person from the financial services, some person from the retail, some person from the luxury industry, and many others. So it's not really industry specific oriented, this one. And about the audience, this webinar is really aimed at so to serve, let's say, sales and marketing directors, I would say, in terms of course, the principal business impacted by the customer data. The business partner, so the person who are dealing as a kind of business analyst with those person to build such a solution, the program manager, and finally the IT directors. So before to start with, let's say, the context, let me just introduce you how the customer data value is important by trying to evangelize a problem via a use case that I give you, which is a fiction. So please don't consider that this is a real scenario. This is a fiction, but I think every organization lives something like this. So it is really close to the reality. So this is the case study. Imagine that we have a company which is specialized, so specializing in the sales of machine tool, generating some revenue when they sell those machine tools to other businesses. And in our case, our company generated a deal of $2 million with a very important customers, a very important customer. And the business developer in charge of this account, name is John Doe. So let's say that John Doe is our key account manager, and he was in charge of the account generating a revenue of $2 million selling those machine tool, which is the product that we sell. And so we have the following assumption in this scenario. So this is the first contract that our company has signed with the client. So this is therefore a new lead for us. John Doe did not receive any request for proposal directly from the lead, so directly from the customer. He contacted the customer proactively and identified an opportunity, meaning that if John Doe didn't contact this customer, probably our company will never obtain this contract. And the last assumption is very important also. So 3 pieces of information about the account were mandatory to win this opportunity, meaning that if any piece of information is missing, we won't sign or we would not sign this deal of $2 million. And this last assumption is really important. What about the 3 piece of information? So what was mandatory was the email, the phone number of the principal contact of the account. Of course, without this information, John Doe, our business developer, won't be able to contact proactively the customer. The historical data about the sales activity in the CRM was also very, very important because John Doe was mentioning previous exchange that he has with the customer, and it allows also to qualify better the needs to go to the point directly and for the customer to understand that John Doe knows a lot about the customer organization, the customer needs. So this historical data about their exchange was very, very important. And finally, the descriptive customer attributes. So for instance, the customer attributes relating to the industry, related to the number of employees, the potential budget, etc., which allows to do a customer segmentation and potentially to propose, let's say, the best fitted product for this kind of customer in the segment. So now, what about the value of this data? I'm not talking about the cost of the data because the cost of acquisition of an email or a phone number is some dollars, maybe. Yeah, well, if you split it by customer, if you pay the licensing to store the data, if you pay the database and the CRM tool, etc., per customer, we are talking about, let's say, $1. The historical data, so the CRM activities that the John Doe documented in the CRM is a little bit more because it consists in the acquisition of this data, of course, and we have to consider the business process. And finally, the descriptive attributes, it's not long to obtain. It is just about documentation, market research. We are talking maybe about dozens of dollars for a well-documented customer. Okay, but the value of those individual piece of information is $2 million. So the value of the email and the phone number is not $1 or $2, it's 2 million. The value of the historical data is 2 million, and the value of the descriptive attribute is 2 million also. Because if you remember, I told you that every information, every piece of information was mandatory to win this contract. So conclusion, the value of each attribute is 2 million because we closed the deal of 2 millions. So this to understand really how the customer data is important and how strategic is it. Doesn't matter if it is used, let's say, mainly depending on your organization by key account manager, business, or it is more, let's say, inbound. Let's say that the customer is coming to you directly in the specifically in the, let's say, the some sectors, but it is very important, the customer data value. About the context and why we are talking about customer data value, which is growing, because the customer expectation are growing also. So some fact sheets that we have is 91% of consumers are more likely to shop with brand who recognize and provide relevant offer and recommendation. In my previous example, I talked about the customer attributes, the descriptive attributes, which allowed John Doe to do, to provide and to propose a relevant offer to the customer. 81% of buyers want brands to get to know them and understand when to approach them and when not to. So again, the historical data, the transaction and let's say the CRM activity that we had in the scenario was very important. 65% of consumers are frustrated by inconsistent experience across channel which is also important. We are more talking, let's say, here about the front-end part and another acquisition channel of acquisition, but it's still important to mention. 61% of customers stopped doing business with at least one company last year because of poor customer experience. So sometimes it is about, let's say, customer channel acquisition, and sometimes it is about quality of the business process. But in both scenarios, customer expectations are growing because your competitor also are improving their process. So it is important to keep in mind that as far and as long as your competitors uh, let's say will do this and will perform better, of course the customer expectation will grow also. So um, this is a real fact, and of course the previous fact that I mentioned was a fiction. And the context of the objective of this webinar today is really to understand that the principal need is the knowledge. So really to have the knowledge about the customer and to access and be able to generate some insights, important insights on this customer data. However, we will see that creating a clean 360-degree view of this customer data poses many challenges. And we'll try to address this challenge and provide a solution that will generate insights for your organization. In order to do so, the objectives today is to understand the business issue, to understand the pain points, and how to implement a solution to this problem. Anticipate the challenge also that your organization will face, and the content then will be to define how to build a customer data-driven strategy, the challenges that you will face, the proposed solution, and how to be supported. So the principal business challenge is are the customer acquisition, the customer loyalty and satisfaction, the cross-selling opportunities, the customer profitability, and the customer lifetime value. We'll see after that those mainly are the 5 axes where our customers, where the different industry want to work in order to optimize the relationship with the customer. And of course, minimize the cost of sales, which is also a very important topic. But in order to do so, and the real pain points to address in order to be a customer data-driven organization and to deal with those business topics are the following. And you will see that there are multiple pain points. So the first one, and I think the most important one is the data quality. So data quality, because in all the example I provided you, data and data quality was probably the most important topic. And sometimes the company has to deal with data quality issue. For instance, they have a customer and they have multiple accounts related to this customer, and sometimes there are some duplicated accounts, so duplicated IDs, etc. So they don't know how to choose the good one. So customer duplication and account duplication and contact duplication is a nightmare. And a lot of company knows this issue. Usually you have also a data with some errors. So for instance, an email address which is not up to date, a phone number which is not correct, blank value, etc., etc. So the data quality, when we talk specifically about the customer data, is a nightmare when you have the data quality issues. The second one is data accessibility, because the customer data is really strategic in both acquisition and retention process. And you have to imagine that, well, if you are already in this area, and if you are a key account executive, for instance, um, if you do not have access directly to the data that you want, what you will do? You will send a lot of email. You will do a lot of calls to obtain and to acquire this information. So having a real-time access, a direct access, and an easy access to this asset is super, super, super important. The third one, very important also, is data literacy. A business developer, a key account manager, is mainly using 2 or 3 distinct tools. So CRM, so customer relationship management tool, is the most important, but he will use multiple tools, let's say productivity tools, but also analytical tools in order to have descriptive insights about this data. And in both scenario, he will need some helps. He or she, sorry, will need some help to understand the data that is looking for, to understand the KPIs, the customer attributes that this person is watching. So data literacy and what we call data catalog is very important for any organization. Doesn't really matter the person who accesses it. Data literacy is very, very important for any organization. The fourth one, still very important, probably the most important here on the left side, is data silos. So let me give you an example. In my own organization at MDW, we are using, I think, 3 or 4 distinct tools which deals with customer data. We have a customer relationship management, where we store account, address, contact, quotation. We have also a project, uh, a project and timesheet management tool where our consultant associates some timesheets and generates some revenue, I would say, related to the same customer, uh, which are both in our CRM and project and timesheet management. We have also marketing tool to develop marketing campaigns, which is also another channel of acquisition of new leads, new opportunities. And finally, of course, the finance and operation tool. So we have at least 4 different tools which are using and dealing with customer data. And the issue that we can usually face is discrepancy, data discrepancy between those tools, because it will generate a lack in terms of productivity. And we really need to address those data silos, which is probably the most complex part. And after that, another pain point sometimes is really the insights. So the really with the insights, when sometimes I access to customer data, I'd like to have automatic recommendations. So for instance, I just don't want to check individually with all the customer attributes, but uh, in order to have some insights, when I don't have automatic insights, I have to manually search for other similar customers. I have to search for, let's say, customer segmentation to see the best product that I have to propose to this customer. With automatic recommendation, you can imagine a kind of artificial intelligence algorithm. We will do this descriptive analysis for you and allow you also to be more productive. So this is an important topic also. Then the regulation and compliance. Of course, everybody heard about GDPR, for instance. Well, Mark Zuckerberg is probably leaving, and Facebook will probably leave the Europa because of GDPR. So it's a very, very important pain point. Then the security, of course, to protect this data against some cyber attack. And finally, one that we will see is, which is very important, the data ownership. Because when we talk about data silos, there are multiple tools, there are multiple functions in the organization, and there are multiple department and business impacted by customer data. So who is the data owner of this customer data in your organization? And then before to discuss, before to show you how to build a strategy internally, I think it's important already to mention which kind of proposed solution we have. Which kind of proposed solution Microsoft have also, because Microsoft is our principal partner. So the proposed solution that we have, and I won't drill through that much in demonstration, etc., because this is not the topic today. We will have another webinar about this, just in case, which really demonstrates how to build a end-to-end solution with such a tool. But just today, this is more, let's say, to describe the solution. So the first one that I have in mind is customer insights with Azure Synapse Analytics platform. So the idea of those two combined tools, so both are Microsoft product, is really to empower organization, because they will benefit about some modernization of their data estate thanks to this. And they will be able to deliver personalized customer experience based on data acquisition and historical data related to this customer, and of course a recommendation system which allows to create this new customer experience. And the purpose of this is really to deal and to solve those pain points that you have. So all the pain points that I mentioned previously should be solved with this. Well, in an ideal world, because of course this is not about technology, this is not about tools. You have also to be ready. Your organization needs to be ready in terms of strategy, teams, in terms of skills, also internal skills. But in terms of tooling, it solves those pain points. So both together. And both combined produce some business outcomes for you. So it will democratize insight for decision maker. So I'll explain you why in the next slide. And then it's also strengthen the customer relationship with some personalized experience. So thanks to the knowledge that this tool capture about your customer data, it will of course personalize the experience of the customer. It finally accelerates time to value for analysts and data professional, and it provides a unified governance. So it is a secured and compliant data. And the idea is really to enrich existing customer data, which are contained in multiple data silos again. So can be surveys, can be also other devices such as mobiles, etc. And it looked like this. So customer insights interface looks like a tool which provides some KPIs about, for instance, segments. So we discuss about let's say the most important topic to cover, such as the customer retention, the customer acquisition, etc., etc. And those segments deal mainly with this topic. So this tool automatically detects, thanks to the artificial intelligence, the potential high value customer that your organization have, the potential churn risk customers that your organization have. And this one is probably the most important in some scenarios, because for instance, if you consider the insurance industry, I have an insurance. Okay, I have an insurance that I will have during 50 years, all my life. If I'm leaving this insurance, you can imagine the revenue that I won't generate. So depending, of course, on the industry, the churn, sorry, is more or less important. Sometimes you have also a business who can generate opportunity only once. So, for instance, if you have a wedding agency, well, churner is normally, I would say, something which is standard, but in some in some um, in some company not. Uh, and then also some segments related to some products. So identified customer segmented by preferred product, for instance. So here, for instance, we have coffee machine, etc. And many others. The proposed solution also allow you to have, of course, this let's say this consolidated view, but also a specific analysis for a specific customer. So any end user can click on the customer, a specific customer, to obtain insights and alerts related to this customer. So here, for instance, you can see the every historical data that and activity that a person have with customer, and the affinities, the interest, etc., and some recommendation also related to the previous KPIs that we mentioned. And in order to do so, I will stop sharing here and I will open this Excel file. Okay, so in order to do so, this tool need to have access to multiple data. So, for instance, if you want to predict that a customer will be a churner, a churn or not, you need to feed this tool, which is an artificial intelligence tool. So you need to feed it with multiple customer attributes, which will come from different sources. So this type of attributes can also be different depending if you are a B2C organization or a B2B organization. And then you'll need to feed this tool with those attributes in order to predict a churn, for instance. And for any other key performance indicator scoring that the tool will do, you need to feed additional information. So the other problem is really to collect, transform, and feed this tool with additional information. And with that in mind, you need a second solution. So you need a second solution to deal with really the data quality and break the data silos. And for this, Microsoft proposed a second tool, which name is Azure Synapse. And Azure Synapse Analytics is an analytics services that bring together data integration, data warehousing, and analytics. So you can see here, for instance, an example of data flow, which allows you to collect, transform, and clean your customer data. So, for instance, here you can see, let's say, a design of a flow, which is merging, consolidating customer data from two sources, applying some transformation, some renaming, some data cleaning, etc., in a visual way. And the second one is to consolidate all this data that you collect, transform in a centralized data data zone to finally feed this customer insights tool. So that's why they work well together. So customer insights and Azure Synapse. But we'll have a specific more detailed webinar about how to implement it. So with that in mind, this is how to implement your strategy. So the first thing really important is really to define a return on investment that we'll describe later. Is to have also a study phase to analyze the existing and define the breakpoint to be treated in priority. And then to plan, to prepare for the implementation and change management. So how to define the return on investment? So again, we mentioned, some important KPIs, for instance, some of them are really strategic, related to the customer acquisition, to the customer retention, to the customer loyalty and satisfaction, and some others such as the cross-selling, the customer profitability, the value delivered to the customer. And then the return on investment of these projects must be defined according to those KPI. And then you need, of course, to prioritize those KPIs in order to have some and to define some levers to improve your organization. And during this step, first, I think that you need also to do a kind of strategic planning, in the sense that you need to send a first survey to all the business stakeholder to define their priority. So not only your priority, but the priority of everybody. And then of course, after defining those KPIs, and the return on investment that you can have, you need to do a kind of gap analysis. So to establish a functional assessment of your organization, to define the impacted business process, and you need to design it really to see the end-to-end business process between the customer, let's say, the customer acquisition and let's say the creation of the generation of any new offering. And this is one business process among many others. You need to define also the impacted operational system, because as I said previously, you have siloed data. So a customer, in our case, our customer data are stored in 4 different systems. So you need to define the system, and you need also to define the end user who deal with this system. Finally, I would recommend to establish first high-level statistics and audit your customer data. Kind of initial ad hoc analysis to let's say, to have a kind of view of the for every distinct attribute, for instance, to see the number of null value or value in error, to have a kind of audit about your customer data quality, to have other high-level statistics about your customer segments, etc., and the customer distribution across segments. I think it can be very interesting also in these study phases, which will allow you to imagine and to write the desired outcome. Then plan your project. So the final step is really to define the strategy and taking into consideration also the organizational dependency that you will have, because again, there are multiple person impacted. So you have to keep in mind that this is really a continuous improvement project also, and that it will be done in several iterations because you have so many person impacted in the organization, so many functions, so many businesses. And just to give you an idea of the business in your organization, the function which can be impacted. So usually you have the e-commerce, you have the CRM, you have the marketing services, you have the IT, of course, the supply chain, the operation. So it's really important to that an organization work and the function must work really as one cohesive unit. Uh, and for that, you need to have, I would say, really a top-down support. So the communication, the communication and the project will require the participation of all those departments. So you will also face organizational silos. And so C-level executive need really to set the expectation. Uh, so I would recommend to really to do a kind of job of evangelization internally to convince the C-level of your organization to have really this top-down support, and for your the C-level of your organization to communicate. And finally, this is the potential journey of an organization wants to do this project. So first to define the strategy, then usually we see a kind of design phase where the organization is defining the solution, is defining also the criteria of success of the envisaged solution, is designing also a governance plan because it's very important to go in terms of human governance and team governance, how the organization will address this project. An adoption plan, an architecture which will also implies multiple tool, the licensing, the budget, and at the end of this step, usually the organization develop a pilot. And then, of course, when it is done, deploy and share the solution across the organization. And there is also a part of knowledge transfer to the business user because such a solution is really to give additional insights and business outcome to the end user. So you would need a phase also, in terms of adoption and knowledge transfer. In order to do the to help them in terms of change management and continuous improvement. Um, so with that in mind, I would say what is actionable with MDW, so our company. Uh, you can contact MDW at any stage of your project, so in the strategy phase, the study phase, and also for implementation. Or you can contact us for a simple advice related to a specific industry context during a free session. And just keeping in mind that we'll organize also 2 other webinars, more solution oriented. So one related to an end-to-end implementation of customer insight and synapse, and one to have a feedback related to a specific project that we delivered and specific industry that we will communicate in the next month. So thank you for your participation. Yeah, if you want to contact us or to contact me directly, I will copy you just the contact of our company and my own email address, so you can directly contact us. If you are interested also to participate to the next event that we will organize, you can also directly subscribe to our LinkedIn that I will give you also the link. to assist to the next one. Okay. So sorry also I had to shorten a little bit the session. Normally the presentation is a little bit longer because today I'm a little bit sick, so really sorry about that. But we'll have multiple iteration and other sessions. So if you want to know a little bit more about the product again, don't hesitate. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.